Hi friends, iTheory here, and I'm finally going to be talking about White Mage. But first, a disclaimer, I am sucking on a cough drop, so if I sound weird, that's why. I have a sore throat, and it's not fun. So anyhow, as you can see, the title of this video is White Healer Mage the job that actually got robbed? Well, I made a video before, maybe you've seen it, called Scholar Got Robbed, and I made that right after the live letter where we found out that the main skill Scholar was getting was Expedient, and there were so many memes, and I basically talked about the changes that I thought would be nice to see for Scholar. So now we've gotten all the information from the media tour, and Scholar, I mean, I stand by what I said in the video. There are definitely some quality of life changes that perhaps were not added, we're not sure. I mean, there's kind of an uncertainty about whether or not the ferry is going to be any faster, but some of the other things I said in that video were not changed, so, you know, there's still some things in that video that I think are still true. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about today, so let me stop with the tangent. Today we're talking about White Mage. So I have seen a lot of videos now about White Mage. There's a lot of great ones, which if you're interested in the topic, I would recommend you check out. We have one by FFXIV Momo. I think it's called something along the lines of like thoughts and analysis on White Mage, and he compares it to Astrologian at the end of his video, which was a really interesting comparison since Astrologian will be the pure healer in Endwalker. And then I just watched a video by Cole Evix that came out today, and it was called Is White Mage Doomed? I'm Worried, and he also compared White Mage to Astrologian. So before I get into some of the stuff they said, because it does somewhat affect my own thoughts, I want to quickly talk about some of the sort of good and bad that White Mage is getting come Endwalker. So first, the good. Divine Benison, 2 charges. Presence of Mind is going to have a shorter cooldown. And then finally we get this new skill, the single target buff Aquaveil, that all of the healers are getting their own flavor of, and for White Mage, it is a 15% damage reduction for 8 seconds, which I think is cool because White Mage doesn't have that much mitigation in its kit, so it's nice to see more added. But now we're going to go to the things that are kind of eh. So first of all is Thin Air. Thin Air is a skill that allows White Mage to perform actions without having any MP cost. This is really great for high MP skills like Cure 3 or Resurrection, of course. It is being changed to have only 2 charges, so it'll basically just affect one skill that you do and you get to use it 2 charges and then cooldown, right? So obviously that's not great. I don't know that I have to really explain that. A lot of people are unhappy about that because currently having it set as a duration just seems like you're getting more kind of bang for your buck, if you will. Like you're getting more for your money because you get to use a lot more skills in the duration of the current Thin Air than you do with having only 2 charges. So a lot of people are very worried about MP consumption in Endwalker. I'm on the fence about this personally. I don't really do Savage raids. I've never done an ultimate. Honestly, I do want to, but that's another video. But I have done some extreme trials and stuff that were a lot of fun, and I've personally not had too much problems with MP. I will say I do find Thin Air to be a useful skill. I like to use it obviously when I'm running out of MP, but also if there's ever a time that like I die and get up and there's like a lot of people dead, it's really great to have Thin Air and then use the Lucid Dreaming, so it's like I'm not using any MP, I'm only gaining MP, and then all my skills like reviving people aren't taking any MP, but I'm still gaining back MP from the Lucid Dreaming, so it's definitely a great skill in the kit. So I would say that I'm a little bit wary, but maybe not as much as other people, just because in general I don't find myself reaching for it that often, but I would be considered a filthy casual. So if you are somebody who's a more serious endgamer doing Savage content and maybe even Ultimate, then I could see why this would be an upsetting change. I feel like I also need to add that Aquaveil isn't probably quite as good as the Scholar and Astrologian variant of those single target buffs. As I said, Aquaveil is just a 15% mitigation for 8 seconds. The Scholar Run Protraction increases the maximum HP of a party member or self by 10% and restores the amount increased. It also increases HP recovery via healing actions by 10%. So it's a triple whammy. It's pretty good. Then the astrologian option is called Exaltation. It reduces damage taken by 10%, and then it also restores HP after the 8-second duration of the skill. But the cure potency currently is 500. So, not to say that Aquaveil is a bad skill, because it's not, but I still feel like we need to talk about it again in this meh category, just because the other two are arguably better. And then finally we have Lilybell. So all of the classes are kind of getting a cool skill, and I think for Scholar, it's the expedient one, which did get memed, but I mean, it's actually not a bad skill. And then we have Macrocosmos for Astrologian, which is a really good skill. Basically, that one, it takes 50% of the damage that you take for a period of time, and then heals the party for that. Like, that sounds really good. Lilybell has the chance, Lilybell is the white mage one, obviously, it has the chance to be very powerful, because let's just quickly explain how it works. So you get 5 stacks of Lilybell, and it's on yourself. When you get hit, an AoE heal currently for the potency of 400 will go off, but you have to get hit. If you do not get hit, or if there are stacks remaining because you did not get hit, those stacks will go off for a potency of 200 each. So if you didn't get hit at all and you put Lilybell down, after 15 seconds, when Lilybell goes poof, it would do a 1000 potency cure, which is very strong, right? So it's not that the skill is necessarily weak, it's just a little awkward, because the white mage has to take damage for it to go off. And at least in my experience, there's not that many dungeons in the game where the boss is doing consistent, continuous, like, bam, 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 bam damage. Like, there's not a lot. Do they exist? Yes, of course they do. But I just feel like a general day of gaming, like if you're not doing some sort of endgame raid or savage mode or something that does have something like that in it, I don't know, I feel like you're not maybe going to be getting the most out of that skill, because you're probably just going to be using it for general raid wides. The other thing is it has a 3-minute cooldown, which is really long, and this is for a skill that only lasts 15 seconds. And kind of back to what I was saying before, sorry for jumping around, but as some other creators in the Final Fantasy XIV space have said, this skill is probably going to end up overhealing because it's so awkward in the sense that you have to get hit, and you're probably not going to get hit that many times. So you're going to have this fat heal at the end that you don't even need, even if you put the Lilybell down before an AoE. So in that sense, it's a little bit of an awkward skill. I have seen some good ideas about it. Some people are saying that you should be able to set it off yourself, or that it should heal when anybody gets hit, not just the white mage. Another really good idea I saw was that the skill should replenish the blood lily, so that if you don't end up using it for heals, you can use it offensively. And I think that's a really fantastic idea, because I just don't see it being, something that you would use that often. Like, I don't feel like you're, like, I feel like in very few instances are you actually going to hit the 5 stacks. Now, maybe I'm wrong, because like I said, I am a filthy casual, okay? I totally 100% am, I admit it. So, but at least in my current, like, play and what I'm experiencing, I wouldn't see myself getting that many. I wouldn't see myself getting that great of usage out of it. So in that sense, it definitely feels like white mage got the short end of the stick. Now, I mentioned before videos by FFXIV Momo and Cole Evix, and especially Cole's, his kind of main points were that the white mage's kit for especially off global healing was like half of what the Astrologian got. The white mage would do less DPS than the Astrologian, theoretically, because the Astrologian has a bigger off-global cooldown kit, which means they can weave their global cooldown DPS skills more easily. And then the final thing was the mana, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, that the Astrologian has a lot better of a kit to allow for mana regeneration or just skills that don't take as much mana so that they won't have any deficiency, whereas it might be a problem with White Mage. So that was kind of his main points. It's a 20-minute video, so if you're interested, watch it, but that's kind of my general take on what he was saying. So after watching his video, I think, I'm not saying that he's wrong at all, because I think he's probably most certainly right. He knows what he's talking about more than I do. So it probably is true that the Astrologian would have an easier time weaving DPS skills and end up doing more damage, and perhaps has a wider range of tools for healing in difficult situations. And so in some cases, you might feel like the Astrologian will never run out of heals where maybe the White Healer Mage would. I mean, to me, I think that having less skills isn't necessarily a bad thing. And here's why. The simplicity of that makes the class easy to use and easy to understand. The White Mage, to me, is 100% a reactionary class, whereas Astrologian, not as much. To some extent, yes, especially now that they're turning it into a pure healer. Whenever you're using shields, you want to get them up before damage goes out, so you definitely have to predict when that will happen. But I still say that Astrologian isn't quite as straightforward, because there's a lot to juggle. Not only do you have to juggle your cards and try and keep the raid buffed to the best of your ability, but you also have to think about timing on certain skills. I mainly think of Earthly Star and Horoscope. So with Earthly Star, it gets stronger after 10 seconds, both in DPS and in healing potency. Similarly, Horoscope, if you use Helios with it, then the duration becomes longer, so you have a longer window to set it off, and the heal potency becomes higher, just like Earthly Star. So for these skills, you will really benefit from being able to use them before something goes off, which does mean that you kind of have to maybe have a better sense of how the game works, or have a better sense of that particular dungeon, whereas with White Mage, you just go. You just use your Assize or your Afflatus skill. Healing on the White Mage is very simple. I mean, once you get to 80, your main healing kit consists of your lilies and Assize. And then of course you do have skills like Cure 3 and Medica and whatnot, and you are going to be using those on and off. But the main skills that you're going to be using are your lily skills, and then a skill like Tetragrammation for single target heals. So it's just like I said, it's very simple, it's very straightforward, it's easy for anybody to grasp. You don't have to study it to play it. You can just hop in and play. And honestly, you don't, in my opinion, even need that much training with it. I think it's something that you can kind of get the hang of relatively quickly, whereas I do feel like you have to kind of play an Astrologian, go through some trial and error, go through a learning period before you really get it, So that's why for me, I don't see the White Mage having a smaller off GCD toolkit as being a bad thing. However, I do have to agree that if there are going to be discrepancies in terms of, a White Mage not being able to do that great of damage output compared to the other classes, or if there is potential for them to have trouble healing in a Savage mode, then that would need to be something that would have to be addressed. But luckily, Square Enix does seem to care about balancing their classes, so I don't think that we have to worry about it too much. But there you go, there are my thoughts on the White Mage. Unfortunately, the changes that we are seeing for Endwalker aren't all that exciting. And I guess that's good and bad. On the one hand, we'll still have the White Mage that we know and love, but on the other, maybe we'll be lagging behind a bit in terms of things like DPS. Who really knows? I guess, once again, we'll find out come Endwalker. As always, thank you guys all for watching and for subscribing. I've gotten a lot of new subscribers lately, which I'm really surprised about because, like I said, I do not know what I am talking about. I am a filthy casual. But regardless, thank you so much. And as always, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Bye-bye.